Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. Today we continue the artist series right here at BusyWorksBeats.com/beatmagic. Today we're going to focus on XXXTENTACION, the one who stood out, RPX. And it's just one of those kids who you may have been averse to him at first, and then he flipped you and converted you over to liking his music. His style was very different as he got into his albums, and it was interesting to follow his journey. And just see his mentality change and everything. So again, RPX. But like the video, if you loved X, I mean, tons of people loved X. And again, I even grew on the kid and really liked the way he differentiated himself from everybody else. I think that's what made him stand out, is the fact that he knew how to do that so well. So again, like the series, like the video, if you want to continue the series, you will get these free project files and they'll be in the link below. Okay, so let's get started. So we're in the C minor scale, and that's C, D, D sharp or E flat, F, G, G sharp or A flat, A sharp or B flat, and C. Okay, so here's what it sounds like. Okay, so copy that. The chord progression from the song Sad, I'm referencing the song Sad. Now, we're not going to remake the song because we want to get in the vein of creating our own style, but what I will show you is how the chord progression and why it's so important, the way I'm going to do it. So the chord progression, we're going to start off with the top notes of the chords. Okay, so it's a little bit of bounce. So with chord progressions, you have to think of them just like melodies. You create like a standard thing in the first three, and then on that fourth thing, you change it up. So right here, we're focusing on the and, so it's 1 and 2 and. Whereas here we're focused on the 1, so it's 1, 1, 1, and it's a bounce, so it's changing it up. Okay, so how do we figure out the chord per this note? Now, I don't want you to focus on scales too much because sometimes you go outside the scale, and I'll show you how to do that today. So right now, however, if you start with one note, just grab that note in your scale and skip every other note going down the scale. Okay, so this will reverse engineer the chord that you want to create. And what do we have? C. Now we have a sawtooth, so it's super buzzy, but I'll show you how to make it less buzzy. And again, we're going to make it less buzzy later. Okay, so now let's get into the sound design. So we need to send the sawtooth through a filter. So let's add a low pass filter, and we want to keep it pretty steady. Okay, and we need to give the initial sound under the amplitude a decay curvature and a release time. And let's add more low cut. Let's add more voices, detune them a bit, just to widen it out. And then you want to change out the waveform. So we can click here under the sources, go to basic shapes and click the window to expand. And you could do sine waves, which will give you the smoothest sound. And then you can go through each wavetable position. Then it gives a sawtooth, which gives you the most frequencies. And then you can go to a triangle, which is kind of in between. I think triangle gives us enough harmonics to where it doesn't sound buzzy, but it also gives us that kind of dulled sine wave sound. So let's keep it at a triangle wave. Now you can, for more advanced users, you can have your cutoff move as well. So for example, you can grab envelope 2, for example. Keep saying example. example. Left click and drag it over top and just pull it so it has a little bit of a range and give it a decay curvature. But that might be too much with the resonance. Maybe some attack would help. That's just too much movement. It makes it sound like a pad type of element. So let's remove that modulation source, but just keep that in mind. You could do that. Let's add more voices to see if we can thicken it up. I think 3 is just the right amount for this vibe. At 4, we get into like a different ethereal type of sound. So now you have the chord progression. Okay, now let's get into all the stuff. So in their song, they have like a brass that gets run through like a distortion pedal. I'm not sure we have any brass samples in our stuff, but let's smart search and just type in brass because you never know. And again, since we're referencing a song, it's kind of like hard to get away from their melody, but you have to remember that if you want to create your own style, you're going to have to learn how to get away from sounding exactly like another song. So we are using the same sounds, but it's going to be difficult for your brain to detach from their melody. So let's create our own melody using a scale. So I'll draw out their melody just so we can see it, but then we have to create our own. No. Okay, so there's a lot going on. We have like 3 main sections. You have the open section, clustered section, and then this structure. Cool. It looks cool, but look how many, look how small of a range this is. This is literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was wrong. 6 notes of range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's not even a whole octave. 6 notes of range. So your melodies, you might be all over the place. Okay, so let's make this our own. Let's get this timing right. I had it timed differently in my head. Make sure these notes don't overlap at the end so they don't pitch back. Okay, and my ear again is telling me it needs a change up. So let's copy this over one more time and just change that last note. Let's work on the sound because their sound was a little bit different. They can go through different distortions. This is just one. You can go through different styles of distortion. They're all completely different. There we go. This might be better. Now, if it's too much, you can go to the guitar rig in the mixer and just pull back the mix level. Add a little reverb to the sound. Give it a tail. Okay, so onto the trap drums. So we have our low frequency cutoff synth, our brass hit. We need some trap drums. Now the only thing I've noticed is that the trap hi-hats have a big gap in them. And then they do a lot of rolls, but there's like a gap. There's like a and then it pauses. So let's find some kicks. Get these lined up in the mixer for you. Let's do the 808 first, just so it can carry the song without the kick. So it goes B. That should be boom. Hey, boom. I didn't tune the 808, so don't take these as the exact notes to match your scale. I'm just gonna play the hi-hats by hand and leave in those gaps. Let's hit Alt Q, and then if you want to add in a hi-hat roll somewhere, like right here, I'm just gonna drag this note out, hit Alt A to make it into a hi-hat roll, and just change your time multiplier. So hit Alt A, change your time multiplier knob to be. Okay, so that's a pretty good bounce. Put them on the 3 and the 7. Now the brass could be a little bit harder. Let me see if I can find a, let's type in hit maybe. We need like a brass hit. Let's see what it sounds like with legato. So let's make this unique. Okay, so in the intro, we are not gonna have our claps. So let's make this a little more dulled down because it's moving too much. percussion element just to add a little more bounce to it. You could use a bongo. It could be this rim shot sound. Let's just add a low pass filter. Just kind of muffle it out a bit to match the tones of the track. So the question is, where do you add the bounce? And it's going to be right before the snare. And that just adds that extra little subtle bounce that we need. Again, let me mess with the sound a little bit. That will lighten up the track a bit, give your bass a little bit more room to breathe. I'm going to add a vocal idea to this off cam just to save time on the video.
Crucified, I will never wanna let go. Do or die, I will never wanna let go. Yeah, you or I, only if you wanna let it show. I'm bad, I know, yeah. I'm bad, I know, yeah. Crucified, I will never wanna let go. Do or die, I will never wanna let go. Yeah, you or I, only if you wanna let it show. I'm bad, I know, yeah. I'm bad, I know, yeah. One phone call isn't good enough. I need your love. When I call, you ain't picking up. That's just enough. One phone call isn't good enough. I need your love. When I call, you ain't picking up. That's just enough. That's just enough. One phone call isn't good enough. I need your touch. When I call, you ain't picking up. That's just enough.